So very good morning to you. Some familiar faces, some smiling faces. So nice to see you again. It is now that our project is in the last month of our work. I try to see that I'm ending up repeating myself in the different parts, saying that this is one of my favorite parts, but certainly it is the psychosocial support part of our project is very close to my heart. It's something that we all came up together with in difficult times. And I think the fact that we are here today, and there are so many, I see already 106 participants, and there are many more on Facebook and elsewhere that following, it shows that we actually getting into something. We're getting into something because it is something that is needed. I also want to thank, and I'm not sure whether the delegation of the European Union in Kiev is with us, but I want to thank them for their flexibility at the times when we had the repurposing, at least the partial repurposing of our project, that they were very, very accommodating and flexible, that we are able to pursue this part of our work. It has been really appreciated. Usually these things takes months. We have been in weeks given the green light to go ahead, and it helped us with your help and your lead, dear Ukrainian colleagues, all of us here, that we make it where we are today. I also want to say it is a favorite part of mine because my understanding is that you took ownership over this. You took not only a lead, but you took an ownership. And I understand that there has been clear signals given to the ILO, that the social partners and you who are here with us representing the various institutions, enterprises and organizations, you are determined to continue. And what could be a more uplifting and grateful moment for us working on this, to have this kind of feedback from you. We are delighted to hear this. Today's event is probably, you can group it as a twofold objective. We hope to give the results and see the points, the results of the pilot initiatives. And I really want to thank especially those who have taken part, both the zaochny, but also the core parts of the pilots. You took the pioneering role in this, and we are really grateful that we were able to do this together with you. And also secondly, I think, and perhaps even more importantly, apart from taking stock of where we are and what we achieved, we will also look into how to scale up this work. The needs are enormous. In these difficult circumstances, the psychosocial support at the different levels, in different forms, is an essential element of the resilience, of moving forward, of the issues, how that needs the community, that needs on the national level, in the regional level, but we are mostly talking about the needs at the workplace level, being the International Labour Organization. So today we will see from the pilots, and this is one of the key advantage of the approach I think we have taken, that we have taken the grassroots level and we try to build it up bottom up rather than just top down. While the initial idea came from, let's say, on that approach, I think we will have the opportunity today to see what worked, what did not, and what are the recommendations as to how to scale up that what worked. So we are doing this together. We are learning together. And I also want to say that when we discussed with my ILO colleagues, it is almost unique in the world what we are trying to do and accomplish together. There has been attempts in Myanmar, in Burma, to do something similar at the time of conflict there, but it did not really take off. I think together with you, we have demonstrated also that this is something that is very much needed and very much possible to do. And this is the advantage of our network, tripartite plus network, that we are luckily have with us today. In today's event, we also hope to mostly hear the voices of those who are with hands-on experience, have been in the implementation of the pilots, but also have been with us from the beginning. I also would like to welcome, because we understand that there will be, or there might be with us additional colleagues and potential partners, and very much those who are interested in this endeavor. And I understand that there might be an opportunity also to add to this growing number of those who are interested to pursue, to join in, and to contribute to this important initiative. I'm also very grateful to have with us Ksenia Lepecha, who has been from the beginning the driving force of this endeavor. And I understand while she might not be 100%, she is with us 100% and has been beyond 100% from the beginning. And we much appreciate that she is with us today. So let's see how far today's event will take us. It will depend on you. I would really like to call for your active participation. Please share with all the ideas, all the thoughts that you might think will help us move together. And without further ado, perhaps this is time to start pursuing this. I wonder whether we have Madame Svetlana Berezina, who is the Director General of the Directorate of Strategic Planning and European Integration from the Ministry of Veterans with us. I'd like to give you the floor, please, for the opening remarks. We are grateful that you are here with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you for inviting to join this event. I represent the Ministry for Veterans, and I will start on this, on veteran-related policy. So all of us, we are living in Ukraine, in the country of veterans, unfortunately, but also fortunately because we have these defenders who are fighting for our independence today, and tomorrow there will be veterans, and unfortunately because we are living in the country, in a country at war. But all of us are investing effort to duly welcome our heroes, our veterans, including at the workplaces that they have or that will be set up, new ones. And an important component of that, an important component of efficient reintegration of veterans and the employment and re-employment is psychosocial support. Because currently we already have the cases where people come to large enterprises, groups of veterans come back, and sometimes people don't even know what to do about them, because these people are often traumatized psychologically, but also physically quite often, and their colleagues don't know how to deal with them, and the people have lost some skills, so some adaptation is needed. And of course, these programs of psychosocial support are very helpful there. Svetlana disappeared. So all of us understand very well that we need to have ever more of such programs. They need to be rolled out, and of course they may be adapted and take different formats, but all of us need those who work and those who come after the war. And what you are doing and your success cases that you are going to present today, well, of course, they need to be developed further actively, and let's move together because that determines our future as well. Thank you.
Anna, for these encouraging words and for the introductory remarks. This will give us certainly the munition to go ahead, not only today, but hopefully also for the future. We are again grateful to have you on board with us. Please stay with us, and your guidance, your comments, your input, it will be throughout much appreciated. Thank you very much. Without further ado, I would like to ask now for the next part of our event on the psychosocial support at workplace, a universal roadmap. I would like to ask Ksenia Lepecha, who I already mentioned earlier, who has been our guiding light, our expert and our pillar of support in this endeavor from the start, to introduce the topic, because this will neatly set the scene. I understand you will share your screen. Ksenia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Zoltan, and welcome, dear participants of the event. Can you hear me well? Great. So you can see my presentation as well, I hope. Before I start speaking about the model that our pilot enterprises have been implementing at the workplace, I would like to suggest to you a short checklist, kind of quick self-assessment of psychosocial support situation at your workplace. These are 4 key questions of the checklist. Has the psychological safety culture been shaped at your enterprise? This is where every employee can confidently, without being afraid of judgments or without any distrust, they can inform about any psychosocial needs, come up with suggestions, freely speak about psychosocial health. Have the structural unit managers been trained in strategies of efficient communication in situations related to mental health of workers? In particular, the principles and skills of providing first psychological aid, using principles of smart adaptation, using inclusive language and adequate behavior and attitude. How confident are the managers when talking about about mental health? Are psychosocial risk and hazards assessed as part of the general policy of occupational safety and health? Has a permanent program of workers' mental health support having efficiency criteria been implemented at your enterprise? So there should be the policy, responsible people, the activities, a system to support vulnerable groups. If you say yes, then you are very much welcome to share your experience, and I believe that everyone will be interested in listening to that. If there is no program so far, we suggest the next steps to implement it. First step, it is where you create an initiative team group, analyze the situation, and of course, enlist management support. And the next step, you develop and approve a written policy, introduce all workers to the policy, and establish a communication system. So if there is no communication channel, then for this program, it is mandatory to do that. Not only for this program, but that's what you actually need to do. Next, develop and approve a program action plan. And the last step is develop and approve a system of program monitoring and evaluation. So every step to develop the program needs to be accompanied by consultations with the workers or their representatives. In this way, you engage the staff, you show the priorities, and already at the preparatory phase, we develop the mental safety culture. Let me explain each of these steps. For the work to be efficient, it is important to understand who is responsible for what and the reporting system. Each member of the initiative team needs to answer the question, why I am a program driver? Why am I driving it? It's important for viability of the program. Further on, analysis of the situation. This is a mandatory part, both at the phase of implementing the program and in the process of its in design and implementation. We need to understand how we analyze the situation if we have the questionnaire and communication channels. So first, we need to analyze the available resources. We need to understand what's working well already and what we lack in the sense of supporting mental health and the well-being of the staff. Then we assess psychosocial needs of the employees. If some support activities are already implemented, then this assessment will make it possible to see whether our staff need what we are offering to them. If we have not done anything yet, then this need assessment would be a good way to start this discussion, to involve the workers and to demonstrate support of the management, that they are ready to provide support for mental health needs of their staff. And now let me check the chat. And the result of this assessment, of situation assessment, will indicate the priority measures that we need to implement and the format of those activities. The basis of a successful psychological support program is a written policy in the enterprise. It needs to be written because it is about formalization of the position of the employer and employees in the aspect of psychosocial support. It may be a separate document, policy document, or it may be part of the general MHP PSS policy. And this could be provisions of certain agreements, and this policy may contain the following components.
Number one is a brief political declaration of intentions. This is actually the demonstration of the fact that this working place values psychosocial needs and mental health of the workers. Then the policy should briefly describe the objectives of the program as well as the target audience. For instance, given the specific of the branch, we can include not only the workers but also students, volunteers, clients, and trainees and other stakeholders. It is also worth giving the key definitions of the policy because not everyone understands the difference between the psychological and the psychiatric assistance, stigmatization, the goal of mental health safety and first psychological aid. The management and the workers have to be in charge of following the policy. The company should also appoint the responsible people in charge of the implementation. It is also important to describe what are the expectations from the workers. The communication and preventive measures are at the core of the policy. Communication is important because we have to inform the workers on various available resources. Definitely, the communication procedure should be well described. In the end of the policy, it is important to indicate how frequently it shall be subject to a review, and the data of the latest review should be always indicated in the document. The monitoring and evaluation should also be mentioned because the periodicity of these procedures also matter. It's important for workers to understand to what extent they're going to be engaged. Psychosocial support program should not be overcomplicated or too extensive, otherwise it won't be sustainable and efficient. Every company, every organization may have its own program of measures for supporting psychosocial welfare. In the first place, the available resources and the psychosocial needs should be taken into account. Such a program should be definitely in line with the recommendations of WHO and other competent organizations. Now we can focus on prevention, mitigation of risks, and recovery. Here, I'd like to present you the model of the traffic light to explain you the strategies which can be involved. First, universal strategies of general level. These strategies involve measures covering all workers. They prevent a broad range of risks. Then, selective strategies working for the isolated groups of workers, for example, some vulnerable groups of workers. These selective measures can be aimed at, for instance, the leaders of structural units and so on. Then, special strategies of the individual level. They imply support provided to individual workers who have mental health traumas and who may need professional recovery measures to get back to work. In this respect, the company's managers will need the skills of psychosocial support. It is also important to have the team for providing psychosocial support. This team should include the enterprise, the company's workers. Under our pilot program, we tested in what way the first psychological aid can be incorporated in the corporate culture. An integral element of psychosocial support at workplace is monitoring and evaluation. First, we have to define the goals and objectives in line with the intervention strategy. Then, the indicators for measurement should be identified. There should be both the indicators of process and indicators of the outcome. Such indicators demonstrate what has changed due to implementation of the program. And then we should decide what methods will be used to measure the indicators. So we have to be clear also about the source of data, tools, and the frequency of measurement. And obviously, we have to put it clear who should be in charge of data collection and processing. And of course, we need the channel of, for communication, or the platform to share the outcomes. We also can be guided by the expected outcomes, whether short-term or long-term outcomes. Among short-term outcomes, we can find the reduction of the overall level of stress within the team, working team. Then the number of people trained in providing psychosocial assistance may grow. The long-term outcome may be the reduction of stigma, in improved culture of psychosocial security, and improved management of mental health risks. So here you can see the action plan which should be developed under the psychosocial support program. I'm not going to give you particular examples because they will be provided by our participants of the pilot program. Here you see the infrastructure of the program. At each stage of program, you can pose some questions included in the checklist. So what can be checked? At the stage of preparation, we should check whether the leadership is involved and loyal, whether the coordinators have been appointed, whether the action plan has been developed and approved, whether the policy and action plan are in place. At the stage of implementation, we can ask the following question. Is there support from the leadership? Is there clear coordination? Is anyone familiar with the written policy of the program? Then, at the stage of result assessment, we can ask ourselves whether the policy is efficient, whether all groups of workers are involved, whether the measures are efficient, and whether the management and colleagues are satisfied, and whether they support the policy. And the results will be later on reported by our enterprises, and I will add a couple of comments. Well, totally 12 companies with 9,600 workers participated in this pilot program. Among them, IT companies, educational facilities, vocational training center, for example, number one from the city of Kremenchuk. 9 healthcare facilities also participated in the pilot program. All these companies are of different size. They have their own specifics and their own possibilities for implementing psychosocial support program. All our pilot companies started implementing the program of psychosocial support at their working places, and they will see later on what is the outcome. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ksenia, for this very good introduction, setting the scene with the algorithms and the requirements, the methodology, but also showing, illustrating where these have been. I think this is an excellent step to get and narrow it to the next stage of our event, I also want to thank Sofia Litvin Santos for posting in the meantime in the chat relevant documentation that goes in parallel to the presentations. And I might abuse my role as a facilitator of this. I also want to especially thank Sofia for her part in this psychosocial component of our project. Like in the rest, she has been sparing no time and effort with very active involvement. Sofia, please continue during the event and beyond. So thank you very much for this as well. Now, without further ado and conscious of the time, I think it will be worthwhile now to get, following the recommendations of Ksenia, to go and explore how these pilots actually worked out. I understand that there were some questions in the chat to Ksenia. Please do respond to that. There was a question from Mr. Andriy Shevtsov, whether there will be possibility to familiarize with this presentation offline, and maybe some others. Let's try to find a recourse to that. Sophia, please.
Yes, I provided the answer in the chat. We have a dedicated web page. There we publish information related to this pilot, and there you can even find the algorithms and all adjuvant tools which can be applied at the level of the company. So this presentation, this meeting's recording will be available on the web page of our project. Please give us a couple of days, and on Monday you will find all the relevant information.
Thank you very much, Sophia, indeed. And thank you very much, Mr. Shevtsov, for your question. I hope we did answer it, and we'll do our best to make this available. I see now that actually we already have 133 participants, and I think more than that, because I see behind the cameras that sometimes there are groups there, and we also have the following in the Facebook. Now, without further ado, let's look at those pilots and look at those examples and the lessons learned from that. And in this series of speakers, first, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Svetlana Sokurenko from the Information Technologies from Naftogaz from Kiev. Svetlana, great to have you with us today. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you, Zsolt. Dear colleagues, our company is called Naftogaz Digital Technologies. It's an individual company under the Naftogaz Group. We provide technological services to all companies within Naftogaz Group. In terms of the psychosocial support, I can say the following. Since the start of the lockdown, since the outbreak of COVID-19, we mode. And within 1 year, I noticed that this isolation and these limitations have an impact on the mental health status of the workers. And quite early, we started implementing some measures aimed at psychosocial support. So our experience goes back to 2021. We invited a psychologist, and we had an initiative group who wanted to participate in these activities. So we started in 2021. As the war started, we realized that the challenges for mental health of workers have increased. And then we were offered to participate in an ILO project. It was a very timely invitation. Due to this project, we received the tools to develop the psychosocial support system. This approach is being implemented in a systemic way. So first, we ensured the support of the management. We started participation in the project with talking to the head of the company. I contacted the CEO and informed him that the psychosocial support is important for both workers and the business itself. It's the prerequisite for confidence and which in their turn have impact on efficiency and productivity of work. Then I received full support from the leadership, and we started implementing the stages enlisted by Ksenia. What did we start with? First, we questioned the workers, asking them about their psychosocial needs. We started in November 2022. It was perhaps the second worst period for Ukraine after the start of war, because it was the time of massive missile attacks, blackouts. We didn't have electricity, didn't have heating, and people even staying at home um, had to undergo multiple difficulties. And we found out that 44% of people were under medium stress, and this program was extremely relevant. Then we created a coordination group, and each and every had his or her own responsibilities and the sector of responsibility. Afterwards, we developed the psychosocial support policy. We approved it and at the level of NAK Naftogaz. This is our umbrella organization, and then we made all our workers familiar with this policy, and they confirmed it by applying their digital signature. Afterwards, we constructed the action plan. The action plan was not limited by the duration of the pilot program, namely 3 months. On the contrary, we created the action plan covering entire 2023. So this plan is still effective, and the new plan will be developed next year. We participated in training arranged by the project to acquire skills in psychosocial support and first psychological aid. Then in February and March, we questioned people about their interest toward participation in the trainings. We found out that our workers are willing to participate in the psychosocial aid trainings, resources, safety and security during the martial law, and we also asked them about their availability for trainings. We asked what topics they find most interesting, and we also asked them about their proposals. And then we engaged our leaders to training on mental health. It's a separate module within the training program. The leaders were trained in risks, in communication peculiarities, in some other aspects requiring their assistance. When then we questioned the leaders about their style of management. So we urged the managers to contemplate the corporate culture existing in the company. And this then then we questioned people about psychosocial risks within the team. It's anonymous questioning, but we changed our mode of work. On the 3rd of April, we stopped working remotely, and we came back to the working places, to the offices. And I think that the risk factors will be slightly different after people are back to their workplaces. That's why I think in a month we have to repeat this questioning to see what changes took place in the people's mood. Besides, we assessed also available resources and the resources that we might need. In terms of safety during the martial law, we used the website and the training offered by the emergency service. This short training explains very clearly how people should behave in the parks, in the forests, because of mine contamination. Then we'll also arrange corporate events such as a random coffee. We have small platforms where people can drink tea or coffee and communicate, discussing some topic. Then people may discuss hobbies or interests, some exhibitions perhaps, or theater plays. People are very actively engaged in such discussions. They smile, they laugh, and this has a very positive impact on their mood.
Then we use this resource as a contract for voluntary health insurance. We analyzed that and we included into the contract the opportunity to go to specialist professionals if they feel any mental health issues. Then we used our resources within the Teams. So we used Teams system chat. Even before the war, we used Teams to disseminate security and safety rules, but now we use it for psychosocial support. All the information and possible recommendations regarding psychosocial support, this is available in the chat. People can contact, ask questions in the chat and discuss some aspects that are relevant for them. And we also developed this psychosocial support web page, but I will speak about it a bit later. Now speaking about the changes that we already witness now. Since February, we've observed, as I mentioned, the following. We have the following outcomes. So we have the talent management program, and it is used in order to develop training programs in all areas: professionals, OSH, fire security, civil protection. And on that website, we set up a page for psychosocial support, not for our enterprise, but for all enterprises of Naftogaz Group. So we look for information on the role, videos on psychosocial support, ILO information materials. All of that information is uploaded to that resource, and anyone can enter to the account and go to the web page and see that information. Second, I'm happy to announce, to say that people do come for for psychological aid. Happily, our employees have not had critical conditions that would require professional support, like panic attacks and so on and so forth. But people do feel impact of the current circumstances, how it impacts their mental state, and they do contact me. Managers, leaders also come asking for help on how to keep going, how to communicate with colleagues, with subordinates. And the third thing that's important is that after the training and after we questioned the managers, they started paying more attention to the need to deal with those issues, that those issues are important. And now our suggestions on improval of psychosocial support program. First, we believe that it is very important within those pilot initiatives to involve students of psychology departments of universities, because not every enterprise has a psychologist. It's quite hard. I mean, someone who has no psychological degree or background, it's difficult for them to organize trainings. But students, they are undergoing their training, they may be interested. It is important for them to have some practical experience, to develop those theoretical skills in practice. And also, they could provide methodological support to the coordination team at the enterprise implementing the program. They can provide some monitoring tools. They can analyze monitoring results. So students could be very helpful in this project. And this is also about future professionals who will come to enterprises and they will already have some background, some experience of psychosocial support, of implementing the respective tools, and they will know how it works. And the second suggestion is holding trainings for ambassadors of psychosocial support at enterprises on keeping the resourceful state. My daughter is a military psychologist, and she says that every psychologist needs to have an individual psychologist. I mean, it's important because people who are ambassadors of psychosocial support at enterprises, if they have no access to their resources, if they are burnt out, it would be difficult to implement the program. So holding this kind of trainings for those people would be quite helpful, we believe, and it will help help us to keep going, to keep the pace. And just to summarize, psychosocial support for workers is a component of OSH system. This needs to be considered at the national level because now they are developing the specialized law and OSH law, and it would be good to include psychosocial support into that draft so that at the state level that could be under control. And then the implementation of psychosocial support is beneficial for employers. The algorithm is quite straightforward, the costs are quite low. Now there are financial restraints, and what we are doing now, we are doing with our internal efforts. I mean, we use in-house resources. We almost have no extra costs. Well, we do plan to implement psychosocial support activities that require some funding, but we plan that for the second half of this year. We are optimistic. We hope that the war will be over and we will implement that further on. But now we're using in-house knowledge, energy, optimism, and our own commitment to help people. And the result of implementing the program can be seen at the stage of preparation, not only after the end of the year. And let me reiterate that this project, it implies development of a Ukrainian model of psychosocial support for employees, adapted model. This is our unique experience. No other country has had the experience as us. And this is an opportunity to set up our unique proprietary model for psychosocial support. It is important at the national and personal level. And the main objective is to develop the individual culture of taking care of one's mental health and create more inclusive and psychologically safe working environment, which is important in the time of the war and post-war as well. Thank you for your attention, dear colleagues.
Lana, thank you very much indeed, not only for this excellent presentation, but also throughout your involvement and generally also for the project. In so many aspects, you have been supporting us very, very actively. Thank you very much. Also for the presentation, noted down very carefully the recommendations that you have mentioned, and you have some very good ideas. So I think this will be very important for the next phases when we also discuss how we scale up. Now, as a next speaker, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Eleonora Burdak from the Regional VT Center in #1 in Kremenchuk to share their experience of their pilot for the discussion. And if you are ready, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, good afternoon, dear participants of the conference. Hello again to all participants of the conference. I'm a representative of one of pilot enterprises, and that's an vocational educational facility, regional center for vocational education, #1 in the city of Kremenchuk. So all of us are now living, unfortunately, in difficult times. The war, the alerts, pain, fear, lack of predictability, concerns about our relatives, all of that impacts our physical and mental health. All of us may have psychological problems, and at work they may result in reduced productivity, professional burnout, emotional and psychological exhaustion. And thus, one of key objectives today would be to protect mental health, to provide self-care and care for the dear ones. In the situation of war, there is pressing need for psychosocial support for employees, for the faculty of our facility. After the war, it will still be relevant. Since November, we've been implementing ILO project initiative and promoting psychosocial support at work. And the objective is to help our employees to overcome war-related stress and consequences of traumatic events, to prevent development of mental, psychic disorders, and to involve as many members of the team as possible. These are our outcomes, results of implementing the project. So we can see that now employees are more open and they feel that they can communicate in safe and friendly environment. We see certain signs of stabilization of their psycho-emotional state. They are ready to provide self-support and support to others, and they have more resources to work and to deal with their routine activities. The project is still being implemented. Some of the employees expressed their gratitude for the support provided. Some followed the referral and now attend professionals, and some started going in for sports or implementing some other activities. Due to implementation of this project, our facility managed to equip a gym for the faculty. Now about the activities that we have implemented in the course of the project. Above all, this is about awareness raising. There were the seminars on protecting mental health, relieving psychological tension for pedagogical staff. We had discussions on beautiful aspects of life, types of conflict, individuals, listening skills, overcoming conflict. We also held individual and group consultations. We implemented trainings on the world of emotions, on life skills, stress and consequences, obstacles to communication, and prevention of stress-related disorders in pedagogics. Moreover, other activities that have been implemented in the course of the program are the following: individual discussions, sessions with training elements on panic attacks, self-support, overcoming professional burnout syndrome, which is very relevant now, behavior models in conflict, addiction and ways to overcome it, and stresses and experience of people in stress. Care and self-care. We also held quests, activities and discussions and short psychological meetings, because we work in education, we work with children as well. The most efficient instruments, tools that we used were breathing exercises, play, game therapy, music therapy, a lot of anti-stress, coloring activities, and correctional programs to overcome some issues that were revealed in the course of the survey. And then, next slide. We held monitoring and assessment of phases of the project on the level of stress, level of support, and satisfaction level. You will see now efficiency of the program. This is about the stress level, effectiveness of the program by the stress level. Next diagram, this is support level related effectiveness and the level of people's satisfaction with their labor conditions. Now, the positive outcomes of these activities. Above all, as mentioned by the previous speaker, we have also developed a draft written policy on psychosocial support It was coordinated and approved by the leadership. It was discussed with representatives of workers and other stakeholders involved into project implementation. So we approved that policy. We developed trainings to train employees on the algorithm of providing first psychological aid. We have created, established, and now are complementing a room for psychological relief. We have drafted a list of resources that can be used for some psychological aid. We hold awareness raising activities. We develop practical skills among the assistants to provide first psychological aid. We try to develop people's self-confidence among members of the faculty, as well as work on detecting resources and ways to meet their needs and self-care. Self-care is most important thing, of course, because people need to provide for themselves. And we motivated our employees to experience positive feelings or aspects even in the situation of war. And we taught them to some self-regulation techniques. Fortunately, the main issue that we have now is professional burnout. And that's the reason why we paid special attention to that theme. Above all, that's about positive relationships, recommendations, advice for those who actually need assistance there. Then advice and counseling on taking care of one's body and health and vital values, and discussion on rest, as well as discussions on professional achievements and professional activities. Further on, you will see some photos. These are the activities that we held: trainings and some sessions and classes with training elements, quest, seminar, practical workshop. And you see that we involve not only the faculty, but also the students, because they also need psychosocial support in these times. And that's important now. Now, speaking about our plans to further roll out the project. Well, we will try and continue implementing the project within the areas planned. We will try to involve members of Transactional Analysis Association in Poltava region into our activities. We will invite their trainers. We will actively participate, and we already participate in trainings on psychosocial support. We plan to work with team members of pilot enterprises, and we will develop our base, our toolkit of methods and techniques. And let me mention a couple of words about our students who need psychosocial support. And the main objective there would be, and this is very relevant now, is to establish trust and easygoing atmosphere during the classes, to form respect and mutual support so that children were not afraid or shy, so that they could share their ideas and their feelings and also their emotions. And I really want this scale to be balanced. I mean that when we teach children, we need to be sensitive to their needs, to their emotions, but we also need to be demanding to some extent.
Finally, I would like to say that we are a very strong nation. As rightly said Svetlana, we did not have such an experience before. Nonetheless, we are strong because we are united and we support each other. Our main task is to work on our own front lines our workplaces are our front lines for many of us. And I'm appealing now to the participants of this project. I would like everyone to find motivation and affirmation to be victorious, to be strong. Such affirmative statements can be, I'm strong, I'm responsible for the future of my country. The knowledge I transfer to our children, I will have an important impact for the future. I'm working, I'm protecting, I'm defending my country. And the most important thing, of course, is to be victorious and to celebrate the victory. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Nora, and thank you very much for the excellent work that you are doing. I think your presentation was really an eye-opening in many ways, and I just want to what I should have said already in the beginning, that again I would use this opportunity to express my solidarity with the people of Ukraine, and I think it was worthwhile that you ended the presentation with the acknowledgement of the resilience and the strong sense that is there. And I would like to second that opinion, if I may, on my behalf. So thank you very much for this, and thank you for the recommendations, and also pointing out also that it's not also only a social issue, but that of economic productivity, and the issue, especially what you raised, the importance to pay attention for the burnout as something of particularly on the radar screen. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to give the floor to Madame Inna Romanovska from the Health Institution in Rivne for presenting their pilot. Thank you very much for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Every occupation has its impact, has its stress on people. It seems that we healthcare professionals know the physiology of stress very well and can cope with that. But please do not forget the second side of the medal. The healthcare professionals who support the others may need the support themselves. We experienced a big wave of COVID-19. During this wave, many patients lost lives, and we also faced with a great inflow of patients. Personally, I'm a general practitioner, a family therapist, and in the beginning of the pandemic, I had to issue over 70 sick leaves per day, and there are also some other patients who applied. And then the war broke out, and we received people from Bucha, from Kharkiv, from other places. So we did not have time to care about ourselves, because in comparison to our patients, we were really privileged and lucky. Then we started participation in the project. First, we created the initiative groups. At that stage, it was very important to select the appropriate people, and we especially value the our starting point was a questioning of the facility workers. Such questioning was a wonderful tool to measure the level of stress, the level of management support, as well as needs and wishes of the workers. So that's the level of stress which we identified. As an example, look at one of the facilities. As you can see, there are many workers with the average level of stress, high level of stress, and the level of stress above average. We were guided in our activity by the psychosocial support policy. We developed the application, the goals, responsibilities, communication, monitoring, and policy review requirements. We presented this policy at the assembly of our workers. Then it was approved by the management, signed it, and afterwards we actually got down to business to implementation. We held interviews, psychosocial events. We were very creative, adding our individual touch to the proposed algorithms. I will show you what we did in our facility because I cannot convey the atmosphere of other facilities. So in our facility, we held the training on emotional burnout, nonverbal communication. By the way, our workers liked this training on nonverbal communication the most because they managed to release their emotions by means of movements. Then we held a series of 4 trainings on the first psychological aid, then art therapy events, mafia game. It's a very emotional game. It was also highly praised by our workers. And we selected the participants on the basis of peer-to-peer principle. The subordinates and the managers participated in the groups on the same terms. Then our facility arranged for an office for psychological relief with homely atmosphere, and also hired a psychologist. As a psychologist, I use a Hart's scale to assess the level of stress and anxiety. Based on the results of such measurement, I select the participants who need the attention. So this is my screening tool. Each of 3 facilities was engaged in monitoring. Monitoring measures included anonymous pulse questioning, mailbox for feedback and proposals, various screenings and questionnaires, then questionnaires, specialized questionnaires for leaders, interviews, and many other tools. The level of stress indicators were important for measuring the efficiency of program. We also measured the efficiency by assessing the satisfaction of the workers at the beginning and in the end of the project. The assessment tool for checking entry and exit point was always the same. Here you see the findings for the multi-profile hospital. After the measures had been implemented, the situation significantly improved. The level of stress went down. Then the level of support at the workplace significantly grew. Next slide. And you see that the level of satisfaction by the labor conditions also significantly increased after the policy had been implemented, the policy and the interventions. Then, positive outcomes of psychosocial support, positive microclimate, emotional solidarity, understanding, mutual support, good rapport, understanding and acceptance, recognizing the importance of psychosocial support, identification and addressing of the concealed conflicts, improved ability to work under significant stress, success in work planning, improved communication with various categories of workers, including IDPs. Then overcoming anxiety. Of course, our ultimate goal is to reduce the level of stress in our workers, especially the stress provoked by war. Fortunately, we do not have a magic wand and we cannot remove the war from the lives of our workers. However, we can provide the support, and actually that's the goal of our interventions. Using this opportunity, I'd like to thank the project on behalf of all three participating facilities. Many thanks for invitation and for providing us with materials and tools. We are going to miss the project because we'll be missing the support from the side of supervisors. We are going to continue, of course, our activity. It's just the start. It's a longer way till we reach the culmination. We are trying to reach the necessary height. So let's wish success to everyone. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you very much, Madam Ina, and indeed for the whole team that is with you and behind you, that has been part of them. Also, please extend it to them and the other institutions as well. It has been great, and I think it was. I was really particularly impressed in your presentation. You mentioned the level of stress related before and after the intervention. It was really visible, the real let's say the before and after situation, but also in many ways you led the way with professionalism and all this, and I think we have learned a lot from you and the teams as well in the process, so I would like to thank you. And of course life goes on, and the team there also, please continue the one. We'll try to find ways and means how this could perhaps being explored further. So dużo dziękuję for that. Now we have one more presentation in this cycle, and I'm conscious of the time. We need to make sure that we try to fit in everything, but also leaving a place for discussion afterwards. So, but now without further ado, I would like to call Mr. Sergei Lugovsky from the All Ukrainian Union of Employers Organizations in the health sector to have an overview of the results reached by the pilot health institutions. Dear Mr. Lugovsky, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for being with us.
Dear participants, welcome everyone. I would like to report on the outcomes of the pilot psychosocial support program. Thanks to piloting the psychosocial support program in the healthcare facilities, it was possible to cover 1,765 workers. Additionally, we involved 6 remote facilities with 5,670 workers. Overall, nearly 7,500 workers were covered by the pilot program. These workers work in 9 facilities located in 8 regions of Ukraine. Professional burnout is one of the important challenges for the healthcare facilities workers. I'd like to say that the algorithm of piloting was the same for all healthcare facilities participating in this pilot program. In the end of the pilot, we generalized and summarized the outcomes. As a result, we isolated several categories of facilities in terms of their structure, number of workers, of financial and human resource capacity, as well as premises to implement the psychosocial support measures at the workplace. In particular, we identified 3 categories of healthcare facilities. First category includes facilities providing the primary health care with from 300 to 350 workers. The second category include in-hospital, inpatient care facilities with from 1,000 to 1,500 workers. And the third category includes large healthcare facilities with over 2,000 workers. In particular, these are oblast hospitals with a very branched structure and network. An important factor in the organization and communication of psychosocial support at workplace is a territorial factor. So here I imply the place where the facility is located, the community, the city, or the oblast. As a result of this geographical position, they can participate in training and implementation of psychosocial support. Another important factor is human resources and finances available for psychosocial support programs. Every facility has its own possibilities to allocate the premises or to hire a psychologist for holding trainings and providing support. And of course, all the facilities can be characterized by a different level of professional training of healthcare professionals. Oblast hospitals, for instance, function often on the basis of medical universities. The physicians of highest category are employed there. They can be involved in evaluation and monitoring and piloting of new activities relating to the psychosocial support. While we piloted the psychosocial support program in healthcare facilities in remote mode, we held the following activities. Development and approval of the written psychosocial support policy in two healthcare facilities. Then Oblast Clinical Hospital of Zhytomyr Oblast approved the written policy with the participation of Mr. Zsolt Dudas and National Project Coordinator Ms. Litvin Santos.
As I mentioned already, the algorithms and the form of holding psychosocial support activities were almost the same as at the other enterprises that were pilot enterprises. And we additionally implemented the following: training of heads of units and assistants to recognize the signs to respond to psychosocial risks. There have been 12 of such activities. And regarding the differences between psychological care and first psychological aid, 5 activities. Trainings to support mental health, 12 activities. We also held preventive interventions and corrective activities at work, and we heard about that from the previous speakers as well. That's introducing a full-time psychologist position. At one of the facilities, they included such a vacancy, and then flexible working hours, revision of job duties. And by the way, the psychologists who work full-time, the psychiatrists actually who work full-time due to this kind of revision, they were in the position to provide psychological aid, additional time to perform their activities, additional leaves to take care of their health, regular meetings with leadership, and their confidence messages. And to adapt preventive interventions at some of the enterprises, we established the rooms for psychological relief, and 2 facilities preparatory work has been done in order to set up such rooms, finding premises, organizing, looking for financial support to do that. And we also organized monitoring and assessment of PSS program to improve it. This included questionnaire, assessing stress level, assessing management support level, assessing the satisfaction level with PSS activities. Now, about difficulties challenges when implementing PSS at work. Above all, not all employees show their wish to participate in PSS activities. Not all of them are ready to accept and realize their emotional state that may require certain assistance. And thus, it is important to disseminate these active interventions in the process of providing PSS at the enterprises. What matters a lot is also high level of physical burden and workload on healthcare workers. Thus, they have limited time to participate in some of the interventions activities. This is especially true about such healthcare facilities that are close to the front line. For example, Mechnikova Hospital may admit up to 200 injured people during the day, and there are only 4 neurosurgical departments, 9 resuscitation departments. So, of course, this is about huge physical and psycho-emotional stress for employees of the facility. So, involvement in piloting activity initiative made it possible for us to come up with certain conclusions and recommendations. One of important tools to implement or disseminate psychosocial support at work is social dialogue at all levels of the organization. And here I'd like to mention the presidential decree 261 of 2021. In that decree, it is stipulated that social dialogue needs to be enhanced at the sectoral level and also at the territorial level. And what matters a lot is economic efficiency or cost efficiency or assessment of cost efficiency or availability of a tool to assess cost efficiency as an important lever, important factor to motivate investments into PSS at work. And what's also important is regional monitoring. Regional monitoring training centers that should be set up. This experience that we have accumulated makes it possible for us to say that in 8 regions of Ukraine, in healthcare facilities, they have trained trainers who can already hold and disseminate their knowledge via the system of trainings to cover various areas of the or sectors of the Ukrainian economy. We believe that that's important. Disseminate psychosocial support at work in various sectors of the economy in various territories of Ukraine, especially in the wartime and post-war. Thank you for your attention. And I would like to express gratitude on behalf of the leadership, those project activists and participants who were actively involved in piloting the ILO finance project to implement PSS at work. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. Lugovsky, I think when we're talking about scaling up, the scale of your part of the pilot already is rather impressive in size and scale. And I think we would really thank you for your very active lead in this field. Also noted down with your recommendations and issues that are from the lessons learned. And thank you very much for bringing the issue of social dialogue, especially, and the importance of the social dialogue to this debate, because this is really important. Thank you very much. Now, dear colleagues, conscious of the time, we are solidly half an hour behind schedule. So I want to suggest something very concrete. We will have the next session. I would ask kindly Ksenia to summarize the recommendations based on the pilot initiative. And then we should straight go to the what's next session. And the speakers would have their roughly around 5 minutes each, not more than that. So let's try to be as concrete and as specific as it's possible, also to leave time for perhaps the conclusions and recommendations at the very end. At least it seems that there is no strong indications to the contrary. I also want to thank the discussion in the chat with some proposals already being put forward by Mr. Andriy Shevtsov. We will park this and then we'll come back to it under the scaling up session. Without further ado, Ksenia, the floor is yours.
So after the project was over, we provided our pilot enterprises with a questionnaire to have their feedback on key aspects of program implementation. This questionnaire was developed in Google form and it is anonymous, and we received 15 sets of feedback and feedback of coordinators of the enterprises that implemented all the steps of the program or who just started implementing the program. All of them were included. The first question that participants of the pilot initiative answered was the quality of methodological material, training material, forum, and webinars at each step of the program, how helpful the information and training materials for each webinars are, and those materials that are published on the SLS portal. 100% of respondents assess the webinars at their best, and that means that we can recommend this form, this methodology to be further implemented to provide psychosocial support in the labor sector. One of respondents indicated that the information materials were not specific and applicable enough. However, the respondent was not too detailed. So we invite you to share your suggestions, ideas, so that further on, after the project is over, so that we could further work on improving these materials. And of course, we asked the respondents whether the model PSS model is helpful to be implemented and enterprises, the four-step model. So most of the respondents said that yes, that's sufficiently successful. Some indicated that it's worth changing something, even though not detailing what needs to be changed, and we'll look forward to more detailed feedback on that to improve the model. Then we asked them about the difficulties of and challenges of enterprises when implementing such a model. And you have already heard from representatives of pilot enterprises about some challenges. Let me just summarize what we got from the questionnaire. So the respondents had the opportunity to pick up several options of answers, and we see that mostly the respondents believe that the model is absolutely realistic and straightforward to be implemented. However, they indicate that since it is about additional workload, they lack time, resources for that, as well as financial and human resources. So, of course, it would be good if there is a separate position, separate role at the enterprise of someone who deals with this issue. Some of the respondents also mentioned as one of the difficulties that size of the enterprise, where you need to cover a huge number of employees. In that situation, it is recommended to develop a system to organize communication and training, where there is a key coordinator, and in each of the departments, there are sub-coordinators who are responsible for communication and training. Next, despite the difficulties and challenges, we received the results where almost 70% of respondents have implemented all steps of the PSS program at their enterprises, and some are preparing implementation of the action plan. It's nice to see that among all those 15 who provided their feedback, there was none who would not have undertaken anything. So everybody has undertaken something on this in this direction. Then an important component is first psychological aid, and we highlighted that as an important component. Me as a trainer and supervisor and all of our pilot partners and observers highlighted the importance of that. And so after the training, 80% more than 50% of respondents are planning to use first aid, psychological aid tools, and 47 are already using those. And you heard that at one of the healthcare enterprises facilities, they've implemented trainings to set up a team of first psychological aid specialists at the enterprise. We received a number of comments from the respondents on the results of implementing the action plan and the program based on the internal monitoring and evaluation systems. So I tried to group them. I will not read this feedback now. You can see all of that on the slide. And also have a discussion further on, and we will have the recording. All the comments indicate positive impact of the program. Then we asked our respondents to pick up the factors that are prerequisites for a successful PSS program. They could pick up several options, and the most important factor is, of course, support by management. And this is confirmed by various international studies as well. Next, number 2, this is availability of leaders or the initiative team that act as ambassadors for support of mental health. And let me emphasize that it does not mean that these factors are somehow ranked by importance. No, all the factors are important, of course, but this is the distribution that we got from our questionnaire. They also indicate that the factor of financial support as important and the availability of a full-time psychologist. We also asked our respondents about what they think about obstacles to further rollout of the program at the sectoral, regional, and national levels. We are grateful to respondents who commented on that question. And they believe that what could prevent implementation could be lack of funding, financial support, problems with rollout, insufficient awareness of management and workers having no motivation, and the hostilities. While prerequisites of success would be information campaigns, awareness raising campaigns, in particular social advertising, then providing financial support, training specialists, in particular introducing a position, a role of a trainer for mental health, or it could be worded differently, state level support. This is about support of enterprises that are implementing the program, and also right selection of the PSS team, as I mentioned already in my previous presentation. And now, based on findings, results of our pilot initiative, I'd like to come up with the following conclusions and recommendations on program implementation at an enterprise level. So, PSS policy needs to be integrated and be part of change management, part of organizational culture, and it needs to be part of OSH. Based on assessment of psychosocial needs, we need to implement, prioritize proactive measures to prevent risks. We need to identify psychosocial needs of employees at the systemic level. And from time to time, we need to check how me as the leader, as supervisor, can help you. In order that the policy and program of PSS were successful, leaders of enterprises and their teams need to pay attention to development of psychological safety. And this is about open communication, active listening, developing safe conditions for people to provide their feedback. Then promotion of mental health support needs to happen through regular communication by talking, implementing various information and training activities to increase psychological literacy, inspiring people to share their experience in psychotherapeutic work. It works very well when they record short videos and then they are broadcasted at work, or where leaders informally can share their experience in this way, making it kind of closer and developing the openness culture. So if working groups and teams to provide first aid at work can be created, all of that reduces stigmatization of mental issues and contributes to early coming for help. So without efficient and regular communication, these programs will not be efficient. And of course, it is important to, on a regular basis, revise and improve the programs, because it's not that you have implemented and approved the policy and you've forgotten about that. No, you need to go back to it, and in line with internal and external changes, it needs to be complemented further, and this needs to be done in consultations with workers' representatives.
The success of the program will be determined by the fact whether the leadership listens to the subordinates, to the colleagues, to their feedback. The program, of course, should be subject to regular updates with the due consideration of new risks and occurring innovations. The best factor of the program's success, of course, will be continuous support of management, both moral and financial. Otherwise, we risk to lose the drivers and face with the burnout. Finally, I would like to share my recommendations aimed at rolling up the program to the level of the state. I think it's worth developing the methodological recommendations and approving them by a competent authority. In this case, it is also necessary to take into account the specifics of the branch, region, and the company. It's very nice that Sergei has emphasized the necessity of categorization. He also said that social dialogue is essential. Yes, indeed, it's a necessary tool for advocacy of PSS programs at the workplace. Because due to such a promotion, the mental health topic will be brought to attention of all decision-making levels. If a company finds it difficult to launch and maintain such a program, it is possible to develop the sectoral policies, starting with the most vulnerable branches or regions affected by war. Then it is important to develop the tool for assessment and management of mental health risks in the world of labor. The workers who have poor labor conditions and a high level of vulnerability are most frequently subject to the mental health issues. WHO recommends to implement interventions that take into account the immediate working environment. We unfortunately do not have the tools for assessing the mental health risks. So we need to adapt the existing tools. They do exist globally, and they have to be adapted to our context. Then it is recommended to create this system for training instructors. The team or a network able to provide psychosocial support is an important element of all available resources of psychosocial support. These first aid providers are intermediaries between workers and professional assistants. They can encourage the workers to seek the professional assistance on time. Then it's necessary to create a platform for sharing experience, dissemination of information, and best practices. The ambassadors of mental health promotion can be not only individuals but also individual companies and organizations. For example, Global Business Coalition of employers created in 2021. Their aim is to engage as many employers as possible to such an important initiative as making the mental health welfare of workers a priority for an organization. I think that we do need such a platform as well. Then it is important to provide the support to the companies under the sectoral, regional, and national programs. For example, we've got the mental health program initiated by the First Lady in our country. It would be good to include the labor issues into this program. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your attention. Actually, uh, that's the end of my presentation, but I think it would be really expedient to discuss further steps that can be undertaken in this area in order to scale up the activities and make the world of labor safer and healthier. Thank you.
Very much for this very, very thought-provoking recommendations and suggestions and conclusions. Very, very well in terms of setting the tone for this. And I think since you have been from the beginning involved in this, it's very valuable to have your guidance in this field. Thank you very much. Without further ado, I have 4, possibly 5 speakers now with a very limited time. As I mentioned, maximum 5 minutes. I'm really sorry for this. I wish we would have more. First, it is our great pleasure to give the floor to Mrs. Olga Khorbanyova from the Ministry of Health of Ukraine. You are with us, right?
Thank you, colleagues. Welcome, everyone. I'll be very brief and inform you on the initiative mentioned today, that is the psychosocial support and mental health initiative supported by the First Lady. Yes, indeed, the psychosocial support at the workplace is an important argument for including this component into the national program. So the topic has already been raised and discussed, and I believe that further on we will be able to cooperate in this direction, expanding our boundaries, because our program is guided by the national strategies as well as evidence-based global strategies. It's a very important topic for us. Today we got a question in the chat about the availability of professionals, psychologists, who could join in implementation of PSS programs at the workplace. The question is whether it's possible to create additional jobs, because this may be very beneficial for the mental health at workplace. Today, we've got an Imagine Gap program under the First Lady's initiative, and actually this program aims at the psychosocial support and training of primary care professionals who can be trained in providing first psychological aid. Psychosocial support is an important contribution to the economy, to the GDP of any country. Given the global experience, we can realize that the mental health is a prerequisite for efficient economic development of any country. Therefore, we do hope that we will be mutually supporting each other and cooperating under the ILO project and our initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Khorbanyova. Excellent intervention, and thank you very much for your recommendations. It seems that we are in the same boat and towards moving in the right direction, I think, and your words and basically stressing the importance of that it's also an economic argument, and that is a contribution of course, to the society, but also to the economy and the GDP of the country. It is of utmost importance. Thank you so much. Without further ado, I would like warmly to welcome Mrs. Olena Konovalova from the State Labor Service of Ukraine. Mrs. Konovalova, the floor is yours.
Вітаю. Я приготувала
Good
презентацію.
afternoon. It's the authority entrusted with the inspection functions. So we inspect the working conditions at every workplace And this inspection is our main function, actually. With the onset of war, we channeled all our efforts to awareness raising and the counseling of workers and employers on continuing their activities under the martial law. We participated in the pilot initiative since the very beginning in two statuses. First, as an employer, we at our service implemented the PSS system. And the second, our role is the role of provider that disseminates information among all employers in order to explain the importance and necessity of this topic. The labor inspectors have access to both employers and employees and workers, being directly their workplaces. So the inspectors have all the leverage to raise the topic of mental health at workplace. So it's part of a routine job of inspectors. In order to disseminate the information and with the support of ILO project, we created the information portal last year, Praca in UA. This is a portal that contains quite a lot of useful information, in particular information on application of legislation. And there is an entire section dedicated to mental health at workplace. Everyone can find useful information there. We've got the information for trade unions, labor inspectors, employers, and for immediate workers who can use these materials for a recovery in terms of their mental health status. There they can find some recommendations and standard documents, proposals, draft documents related to the PSS system at workplace. The portal also includes the link to the project's website. And today, Ms. Ksenia mentioned the information hosted on this website. Our portal, Praca in UA, includes not only printed materials, materials for reading, let's say. Now, there are also video consultations that can be quite useful for stabilization of the psychological status of a person. What are our recommendations and follow-up actions? Due to ILO project activity, we managed to train 300 inspectors who can convey the message to the employers related to the importance of a PSS system. We're going to continue training of these inspectors. We want them to provide information and counseling support for each particular employer willing to implement such a system in their enterprises. To this end, we've developed a training program for labor inspectors, and it is planned to launch this program in the nearest future. The trained inspectors will be able to provide all necessary information to employers eager to launch the PSS system in their companies. At the moment, we are engaged in developing standard template documents, such as action plans, for every employer to select the information they need in order to develop their own documents. Of course, these tasks are very global and we cannot cope with them on our own. Therefore, we are planning to start cooperation with other authorities and social partners on both central and regional level, because we would like to consolidate our efforts and act as a consortium in order to set up healthy working conditions at every enterprise. If you are interested, if you are willing to receive some additional information, please visit our information portal Praca in UA. Apart from recommendations on PSS, you will find there answers to the questions related to OSH, labor protection, and other aspects of our activity. Many thanks to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Olena. Thank you very much for the excellent cooperation from the very beginning, putting this whole psychosocial support from an idea into practice, and for the excellent cooperation with colleagues from SLS, and indeed for you being part also of the pilot. Thank you very much for the recommendation, well noted, and I'm glad that you are able to present your presentation. I think it was a very important contribution, and it's well noted. Dużo dziękuję. I would like to give the floor now to Mr. Sviatoslav Hanenko from the Association of Employers Organizations in the Health Sector, and I would like to warmly welcome him for his recommendations as to how to scale up the PSS at the workplace, and also in advance wanting to thank him for his really wholehearted support in this endeavor. Mr. Hanenko, the floor is yours.
Dear participants, welcome everyone. Greetings to Mr. Zoldutas, to all participants, Ms. Sofia, Ms. Ksenia, dear partners. First, I'm also incredibly grateful to our team, which participated in this pilot quite actively and, in my opinion, quite efficiently. Ms. Inna Romanovska has made the position on behalf of our leader, Sergei Pavlovich. I'm very happy to participate in today's event, and I'm happy to see Ms. Olga Gorbanyova representing the Ministry of Healthcare and the Public Health Center. The 28th of March, the Ministry of Health held a meeting, and at this meeting it was decided to develop the regional plans for organization of mental health. And additionally, it was also decided to come up with interventions aimed at protecting mental health of workers at their workplace. As mentioned by Ms. Konovalova, we started the communication quite actively, and we hope that Mr. Zholt and Mr. Sergei Savchuk will continue efforts aimed at prolongation of the project. The team has done a great job, and we were really happy to be the part of this job. Some of you mentioned that this work could relate to the inception phase, and we see that lots of work lies ahead of us. It is important to support the both working and the non-working population in broader terms, in the terms of broad psychosocial support. And now we are working on the interagency dialogue. This dialogue is quite meaningful. It's about the key elements of this process.
And our conclusion is that preventive medical examinations, we started by organizing them and certifying the workplaces, developing the cohorts, and determining the scope of coverage, and especially implementation of recommendations by employers and trade unions, that it needs to be the focus of detailed discussions, because we see that it is important to develop a new paradigm in our approaches to OSH. So from the emphasis on treatment, we would like to shift the emphasis to prevention and the category of healthcare that impacts productivity of labor. In the format of our employer association, we decided on developing regional projects for psychosocial support on the one hand, and Sergei Pavlovich has mentioned that we already see which trainers could scale that. And I also pass regards from Mr. Kina, who is the head of the association, who in individual discussions expressed his wish to hold in May a discussion of the theme of PSS at work in the context of development of labor potential at the session of the anti-crisis headquarters that is led by Anatoly Kinach, in order to involve into this process as many active stakeholders as possible. And of course, we need to be ready to present at that session some practical achievements, lessons learned, specific results. And we very much hope that project team, project management, and leadership will participate in that session, anti-crisis headquarters session, as well as representatives of the Intersectoral Coordination Council. And well, I will not now go into detail regarding some of the aspects, but based on what we have developed, based on how we see it due to your support, and we hear about the importance of the algorithms and technology and techniques as presented by Xenia, as supported by Sophia and the other partners. So I believe that this impetus and this team synergy effect, that they will create due preconditions for active rollout development of these activities to develop the best ways to implement that. And of course, we can now address Ukrainian authorities for the decisions to be made at the national level, to have some legislative framework in order to somehow structure, institutionalize this process. Thank you again. I'm proud of our team, leaders, and implementers, grassroots, and glory to Ukraine.
Heroyam Slava. And of course, thank you very much for your leadership in this. Your contribution has been much appreciated. It has been great to have an ally and a colleague that really moved this in a very, very supportive manner. We are grateful to you on this. I would like to give the floor to Diana Kazakova from the Federation of Trade Unions. Diana, we are great to have you. Please, the floor is yours.
Добрий день, я буду коротко.
Yes, let me be very brief, and I would like to summarize this outstanding event and this huge work that has been done by the project. So, above all, we are very grateful. We are grateful that you have invited us all. You have not left anyone behind. You have involved everyone to this work, and this is very helpful. I'm specifically grateful because the project has been well adapted to the current realities, because in the first one of the project, there was no PSS component, there was no pressing need. But now this is a priority, of course, and the fact that you could so flexibly adapt and pick up Xenia as the expert there, Xenia as the leading person in the process. So, and this pilot initiative, well, we really bow deeply to you because these results are very impressive, and I hope that not only pilot enterprises but other enterprises as well, that they will implement the system of psychosocial support that's so important now, and that will be even more important after the end of the war, where we will need to adapt, to help a lot of people adapt to the civil life, and this is really a long-term project for the future. That's very important, and to pilots and other activities, to other enterprises that are implementing that, I wish reciprocality to you. I mean that employers want to do that, and that support this initiative, and that employees are motivated, because you need two parts of this process. Both of the parties need to have this wish and motivation to support that. I agree with Andriy Shevtsov that it is important to develop a psychological standard. And if there is this working group, we will definitely participate if you invite us in that work. Speaking about what Olena Anatolievna has mentioned, Lena Konovalova, I would suggest that, well, currently we have this interdepartmental working group and the action plan, where there is the aspect of undeclared labor and prevention of injuries at work. So maybe we need to include this aspect of developing joint activities to develop PSS at work in order to cover as many enterprises as possible, and trade unions can join this work at the territorial and central levels to contribute into implementing PSS at as many enterprises as possible. We have the Academy of Social Relations, there is a psychology department, so we can involve them. Thank you all. As Sviatoslav mentioned, the previous speaker, we are members of the working group on prolongation, extension of the program of the project, and hopefully it will work out. And hopefully we will be able to accumulate all of our wishes in such a way that we manage to extend the project and we will continue this work. So we do not say farewell, we hope we will continue this work.
Thank you very much, Дуже дякую, Diana, for these warm words and the support from the trade union colleagues that we have had from the start. It is much appreciated. It's really has been a key. Of course, there's more to be done. Let's see what ways and how this could be put in place. I want to thank you for your recommendations and your observations and your intervention. Now, on my list, I understand that there might be an intervention by Madame Yulia Mazur from the Coordination Center of Psychological Health. Madame Yulia, are you with us?
I'm glad to welcome everyone here today, because support for psychosocial support at work must be an integrated element of the national program for mental health. This is a program initiated by Olena Zelenska. During audit of need of target audiences and audit of the resources that we have available in Ukraine, and in the framework of which we try to study capacities of various central authorities. So the conclusion was made that the field of human activities, that's the field where most people spend most of their time at work. Sometimes they spend more time at work than with the family. So the impact of employers on support of mental health of their employees needs to be an integrated part of the entire system. And that's the reason why now, when we are developing the action plan to implement mental health concept for the next 2 years, the team of the National Mental Health Center intends to include this component into the overall action plan. And I'm glad that today I have heard a lot of helpful information, in particular about development of the draft law on OSH, on healthy environment for employees. And also I've heard about the pilot projects that have been implemented. I hear about the high level of interest of ILO to support these activities, that Ukraine may be actually a pioneer in this aspect, and further on disseminate this experience to other countries. And of course, it's clear that any further steps that we make need to be coordinated and joined. And I agree with Mr. Sviatoslav Hanenko in the aspect of that. Of course, this project needs to be extended, as mentioned, in particular, to develop specific tools for psychosocial risks at work, to cover the entire territory of Ukraine, not only pilot projects, but to roll it out in a wider scale. And this work needs to be systemic, and it needs to include both employers and trade unions. There should be mutual interest of employers and employees. Thank you for this meeting today. It was very fruitful, productive, and looking forward to further collaboration.
Thank you very much, Madam Julia. It is our great pleasure to have you, and thank you very much for having us in your plans and being able to join us today for the meeting. Much appreciated on behalf of our project team, but also I think of the participants. It has been great to have you. Before giving the floor to a dear friend and a colleague, and I think also there was mentioned in one of the early speeches about the PSS ambassadors. We do have one, but before giving the floor to him, I would like to kindly ask Mr. Shevtsov, because he raised his hand earlier, to make his comment. And please accept apologies that it came later than you expected. Please, the floor is yours before we go to the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Zsolt. You can hear me, right? So let me emphasize the research aspect of our work. And this is about health and mental health, and this is very a sensitive thing. And of course, our methodologies need to be evidence-based and they need to be validated. I'm speaking as a head of the research board of the National Organization of Employers in the Healthcare sector. Recently, we set up this academic or scientific board, and in particular, we work on evidence base for methods and techniques of psychosocial support. So our board will be happy to join this process of scaling up the project and maybe working with the extended project. In the board, we have representatives who are actually the best experts in our sector, and also us with the National Organization of Employers, led by Mr. Kinach, we're developing the core laboratory. This will be a national laboratory that will work on preservation and development of labor potential of Ukraine. And we will work on those aspects under that framework as well. So the methodologies, the questionnaires, sociometric data that have been accumulated as a result of the project that needs to be published as proceedings or guidelines, so that we could accumulate all of this knowledge in print, so that all of these methodologies were accessible and readily available. And of course, in order to ensure evidence base for further interventions. And also, I continue developing the theme of professional qualification. Because no matter what we speak about, unless we have the respective standard for professional qualification and methods and procedures for assessment of this professional qualification, it is not about qualification of an organizational psychologist, because actually these are two micro qualifications. This is organization psychology and psychotherapeutic support. So we are working on that to develop the standard as qualification within the professional standard of a psychologist. So we ask you all to join. I hear Diana's intervention. We will be happy to involve all stakeholders into the project. And I believe that all of us together could develop this professional vocational standard so that we had a document that we could rely on and we could be guided by it in the field of employment and training.
Thank you very much for your contribution, for your intervention and your recommendations. Absolutely, absolutely. This is very timely and very important. And I think we are well noted your recommendations. And thank you very much for the support throughout the process. Before giving the final floor, for the closing remarks, I understand that there are some raised hands in the audience, and it is my great pleasure to give it to my ILO colleague Larissa Savchuk. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Zsolt. Thank you, colleagues. I am so pleased to attend this event today. And during these 3 hours, me personally, I've heard a lot of information, new information, and my conclusion is that despite the fact that the theme of PSS at work is quite new for Ukraine, and above all, it has been provoked by the war, unfortunately, even though mental health at work has always been a relevant topic. So the impression is that a lot of us are doing something in this area, but we don't have that efficient exchange of information and communication in order to bring together all of these fragmented efforts and to move further and to make it viable and lasting at the national, regional, sectoral, entrepreneurial level. Since this session is about rolling out or expanding the impact of the program, let me mention that one of the methods could be including PSS aspects into another social theme that is now being discussed. In particular, this could be about prevention and responding to harassment and violence abuse at work, because ILO ratified Convention 190, Recommendation 260 on eradication of harassment at work. There are proper definitions to this concepts, and they describe the respective tools to respond to this phenomena. So psychosocial support at work is an important tool to prevent and to respond to harassment at work. And as ILO in Ukraine, we try to cover those aspects as well. And in the last months, we've held training activities upon the request of the Federation of Trade Unions of Ukraine. We've held 5 and we are planning the 6th one. And thank you, Ksenia, because you are stretching to cover our needs as well. And so harassment brings us to PSS theme, I believe. I mean, this is a very relevant component, but there are so many requests. We hear them at every seminar. 4 or 5 people approach us. They ask us to hold these trainings for their trade union leaders, for their colleagues in the context of the war. So I believe that it is important now to support psychologically those people who we are going to rely in the future, those people who will develop these programs and implement them further on after the war.
Therefore, thank you very much for this accomplishment, for this small project. Dear colleagues from the Labor Service, we of course are expecting continuing cooperation on these topics, prevention and eradication of violence and harassment at the workplace, and we would like, of course, to scale up these activities to the entire Ukraine.
It's a very good point. I mean, essentially, the psychosocial support component can be a vehicle that so many things are linked to it. So many things are interrelated. And I think pointing out in relation to the harassment and violence at work is one important nexus in this. Thank you very much for this. And thank you very much for being with us and enriching the discussion with the comments and recommendations. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, unless there are any last-minute possibilities and thoughts, it is my great pleasure to give the floor to my colleague and friend from the ILO, the national coordinator, Mr. Sergei Savchuk, who is not only the PSS ambassador, but in many ways a labor ambassador in Ukraine. It has been from the beginning, Sergei quietly behind the scenes, helping whatever was needed with networking, with diplomacy, with advocacy. So perhaps it's not in the front, but from guidance and coordination, he has made a huge contribution to the fact that we are here today. So I would kindly ask him to have his take and his concluding remarks at the very end of it. Sergey, the floor is yours.
Дякую, Жолт. Я, напевно, буду українською. Я хотів...
Thank you, Zsolt. Perhaps I will switch to Ukrainian. I wanted to start in a standard manner saying, dear colleagues, but I won't do it. I'll say just wow. It's my emotion. Dear colleagues, I'm deeply impressed by your statements. I know that you are engaged in a very meticulous work under each of the 12 pilots. These pilot enterprises got down to business very actively in spite of shelling, in spite of blackouts. The pilot companies managed to complete the project, and today we've heard about the outcomes for each the company. They are now we are the beneficiaries of a kaleidoscopic experience that you presented today as a result of the pilot projects. This experience should be still digested and perhaps also systemized. The first things that comes to my mind is that we have to agree on our follow-up activities, our next steps. In what way can we utilize the experience of the pilot projects? In what way can we ensure the sustainability and further progress? I think everyone agrees with the statement that we do need to systematize the approaches towards psychosocial support at work. I think you will agree with me if I say that we need to create a certain ecosystem encompassing various spheres, starting with legislation to professional standards and the scientific foundation. It is also important to keep in mind that finally the adopted legislation should be enforced via the mechanism of social dialogue and collective regulation. I believe that a new OSH law should become an integral element of this ecosystem. From the Ministry of Economy, I got the information this week that this law is supposed to be adopted very soon. It's actually on the top of the European integration agenda. And due to this law, we will make a huge step towards the European Union, because this law changes the paradigm of approaches towards OSH at work. And the psychosocial support project resonates actually with the proposals brought about by this law. It is planned to systematize the risks and to address these risks, including the psychosocial risks and mental health risks. So psychosocial support is one of the responses to the risks that we identify at work. I think that a rapid approval of this draft law will enable employers to go to the new track very soon. I mean, the track of approaching the mental health at work. Employers cannot be guided by the old legislation and adopt new approaches to mental health at work at the same time. It's very complicated, and the transaction cost, so to say, is very high. That's why we are looking forward to adoption of this law. Hopefully, it will give a powerful impetus to the development of this approach of risk management at work. And secondly, I'm welcoming the statement made about the scientific research, scientific basis, which is needed for the development of the professional standards. We've got the experience in developing professional standards. The latest standard developed with our support was a professional a standard we came up with Kherson administration, and previously also participated in such exercises with the authorities and the social partners. I think that such standards of training may have an impact on educational programs for psychologists. Obviously, lots of practical recommendations were provided today, and one of them is to keep in mind the size of the company. I can't help but agree with this statement because if it's a big corporation, it's a big facility with large teams, then it's possible to set up initiative groups and teams. But what about small companies with up to 10 workers? They cannot afford to hire a full-time psychologist. They cannot afford to designate some workers to be in charge of this area. And in this respect, once again, I would like to emphasize the importance of the ecosystem, which enables companies to outsource the counselors and the psychologists. And I would like also to refer to Ms. Larissa's words. She spoke about open and friendly working environment. Such openness and friendliness do not leave a space for such disgraceful things as violence and harassment at work. Such a positive working environment creates prerequisites for addressing issues of people traumatized by war. I'm talking here not only about the civilians, but also about the veterans, servicemen who are going to come back from the battlefield and get integrated into the peaceful life. So definitely there is a need to create the conditions for adapting and assimilating these people via the world of labor. So they will definitely need to be adapted in the psychosocial terms. The workplaces will have to be adapted to the needs of such workers. And in this regard, we've got a very robust international experience, which can be very helpful. The authorities, including the labor service, should actively participate in this adaptation. Of course, serious financial funds should be also involved. We cannot expect that the employers will adapt the workplaces on their own. In line with international experience, the state should be actively engaged. And I'm also very pleased to say that the colleagues from the Ministry of Health do confirm the importance of this work stream, namely psychosocial support at work. I think that this topic should become one of the key topics for discussion by the Interagency Coordination Council. Today's event proves that there is a comprehensive understanding and vision of the problem, and what is the most important thing is that we also have a vision of possible solutions. So the representatives of national authorities, labor service, and we as ILO are ready to participate in these endeavors. Let me also commend the work of the labor service. We mentioned several times that labor service managed to create a wide range of services for employees and employers, including psychosocial support in the times of war. We get information proving that such services are on high demand. Those who, the inspectors who have undergone trainings are really grateful for this support. This, I think, initiative should continue, and the services provided by the labor service definitely should include the psychosocial support component. I would like to express gratitude to Mr. Hanenko for his relentless enthusiasm and his comprehensive vision and his advocacy at all levels. Many thanks to Mr. Kinach and the entire team of all Ukrainian Association of Employers Organizations. Many thanks for your leadership. We know by our own experience that if the employer is involved in some activity, then the chances to be successful are much higher. I'm absolutely convinced that such proactive participation of employers dooms us to success. Of course, many thanks to the project team. Delighted on the one hand by today's meeting. On the other hand, this meeting has a little bit sad hue because the project is approaching its end. Actually threatened that all the initiatives will be handed over to me, and I'm already afraid. I know that this burden will be put on my shoulders, but I'm sure that we will find the financial resources to continue. We are not going to finish working with you and Sophia and Irina. We are just expecting an interruption for some time. Many thanks to you, Zsolt, for this wonderful cooperation and for wonderful moderation. Dear colleagues, dear project team, we're not going to stop here. Under some other projects, we will cover we will meet the current needs, but anyway, I'm sure that we'll be looking for the new systemic solutions in the area of psychosocial support. So lots of work lies ahead. Ukraine is working, as Jolt once said, so we have to work as well. Thank you for your attention.
Words. I understand that there is a very last comment from Sophia regarding an announcement to be made, but before I give her the floor, I just wanted to thank you, Sergey, for being the guiding light for us in this and also on the other parts of the project. The support coming from that was very, very important, and it's great to have you with us. And of course, this is something that we enjoyed tremendously, being able to have that privilege and honor together with the social partners and others. Now, I would like...
Жовте, якщо можна, я переживав, що я когось не згадаю. Я такий от не згадав.
Jolt, if I may, I would like to mention one more person. I was so afraid that I would forget someone, and I did. I think that we have to appreciate Ms. Ksenia's efforts. Ksenia, in the end of each training, we saw that people approached you asking for the similar training to be conducted in their own enterprise. This is, I think, the signal of high quality of training. We hold many trainings, but none trainings are the same. No two trainings are the same. Every time, trainings are individually tailored for the particular audience, and of course, these trainings have some features in common. Nonetheless, they are tailor-cut all the time. The threshold is very high, and if we're talking about professional standards, then we will be guided by the best role models. Your trainings are role models for us. Thank you very much. I finished. Okay, I will capture the mic for a second. Our project started in 2020, and it's due to end on the 10th of April. This is our finish line. We are closing one by one the sections of the project. Today we close one more of big block, psychosocial support. It's official closure. I'm very sad about that, but I'd like to use this opportunity to hug virtually our pilot enterprises in Kiev, in Kremenchuk, and Lviv, and Rivne. They have become opinion leaders during this pilot project. We experienced blackouts and missile attacks during this project. Kremenchuk continued working under the complete blackout. In Brovary, a huge tragedy took place during this period and has a great impact on all of us. This pilot was always under attack of psychosocial risks. Oh, I'm going to cry now, really. Nonetheless, notwithstanding all the difficulties, we managed to cope. We tested together very important tools, and Ukraine has these tools available now. You represent the most difficult sector because you work in the person-to-person modality, so the workload is huge. Your clients are people with stress, who might have been injured at work, who might have been traumatized mentally. This is the category of people you have to work with. In order to work with them, you should be of the best qualification, and you need, of course, support. Then you work with the students, with young people who experience great transformations, especially outlook transformation during the war. And you have to work with them as well. And I'm happy that you decided to participate in the pilot. You invested lots of efforts, your heart and soul. You were absolutely responsible. You completed all home tasks. And due to this, we managed to keep the pace since November till April.
And what makes me really happy, this is that you have said that we just start developing. I had some anxiety about that. The pilot project will be over and the work will be over. I didn't expect that, and I'm happy that you've said that the work is just starting. And here, national partners, employers, trade unions, ministries, let us keep the pace because the work is ongoing. There is this momentum. So let us go at full speed so that we see not only the transformations in the pilot and enterprises, but we need to see specific quality changes at the enterprises where there are the high level of satisfaction, where there is support from leadership, so which impacts productivity of labor and reduction of sick leaves, and thus sustainability of businesses and efficiency of businesses. And this will be the result that will take Ukraine to a new important level. Thank you all. I hug you all. This is the last meeting. But on the 14th of April, we are looking forward to official wrap-up event. Follow us on Facebook and join us then. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sophia, for this really now last words. Congratulations. Thank you, Sergey, also for your concluding remarks. Thank you all for being here with us. And in fact, as Sophia said, a virtual hug to all. And basically, let's continue the work. We don't stopping. That's what it is. With your help, we just ruchajmy forward. Thank you very much. Do побачення.
Goodbye, and thanks to all the participants for participation. Right. Thank you, and bye. And glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes. All the best. Stay safe.